Hey everyone, this is the 2022 iPad. Not the Air, not the Pro, just iPad. And we've been expecting a redesigned iPad for quite a while because it was the last device that Apple didn't upgrade to its brand new iPad design language, and honestly, I love this new design. And despite all the negative talk and controversies about this iPad, it's overall a pretty weird, but also wonderful device. Okay, so first off, the design. Personally, I'm a really big fan because it looks like the Air and the Pro, which are still great looking and beautiful devices. Yeah, sure, the side bezels around the display are a little bit thick, but the overall device is thin, it's lightweight, and it's great to hold for writing out notes or watching videos on the couch or something. It's a really nice feeling device, it feels like an iPad, and it feels premium. One of the more exciting changes here is a switch to USB-C from Lightning on the previous model, and Apple's kind of changing all the devices in its lineup over to USB-C because they kind of have to at this point. And it's great for consistency and being able to use USB-C accessories with the cheapest iPad model, but don't get too excited though because it's kind of like a Lightning port disguised as a USB-C port. It is obviously a USB-C port, but it kind of lacks the speed that USB-C offers, which kind of sucks. There are also stereo speakers on the side of the iPad which do get pretty loud and sound decent. They're not incredible, but they are good. And there's also that wonderful side-mounted fingerprint scanner which works great for logging into your iPad real quick with just a tap, and I'm a big fan of having this on the iPad. I think the Pro should have it at this point. There is no Face ID though, but honestly, I prefer the fingerprint scanner. And I'm sure you've noticed at this point, it's very hard to miss, this iPad comes in this beautiful yellow color, as well as a variety of other colors as well, including a more neutral, toned down silver, which also looks pretty good. And whether you choose to go with one of those vibrant saturated colors or the minimal silver, at least you have options here, which is great. Honestly, I wish the Pro came in more colors besides just the silver and space gray. It's really no fun. Also, a pretty smart decision here is the front-facing camera placement on this device. Right at the top, right in the center, it's exactly where it should be. It's a great position. Also, much better than what we have on the Pro and the Air, where it's side-mounted. Now, it's not going to be the absolute best quality ever, but it's still pretty good for FaceTime calls and video meetings, and now that it's in the right place, it's just a much better experience. And this is the video quality of the front-facing camera on this iPad, and you're hearing the audio quality as well right now with the built-in microphone. And it is actually a wide-angle camera, so you can do this. And it looks pretty good in my opinion. It's solid for video calls, just recording short videos like this. It's pretty decent, no complaints here. It also does have center stage as well, so if you're sitting down, you get up to move around a little bit, the camera kind of follows you around, keeps you in the frame. Pretty cool feature, great to have it on this iPad as well. There's also a rear camera that shoots 12 megapixel photos, and shots are pretty decent if you really have to use this iPad camera, and for scanning documents it also works great as well. And this rear camera also shoots 4K video up to 60 frames per second, so if you have to shoot video on your iPad, at least it's going to be sharp. And the 10.9-inch display here is pretty good, but compared to the rest of the iPad lineup, it's definitely not that special. It has a 2360 by 1640 resolution, 500 nits of brightness, and unfortunately, it is not laminated, so there is a small gap of air between the glass and the display itself, and it's also, of course, 60 Hz, not 120 Hz like the Pro. But that being said, it's still a good display for watching videos, editing photos, playing games, reading. It works well. It's nice. Okay, let's talk about accessories now, because here's where it gets pretty weird with this iPad model. There's a brand new keyboard cover. It's completely new, completely redesigned, and it's kind of like a mix of the Smart Keyboard and the Magic Keyboard. So there's two separate pieces, the keyboard part and the back kickstand cover part. And I actually do like this idea of having two separate parts. It works out pretty well because if you don't want to have the keyboard while you're watching videos or playing games with a controller, you can just use the rear cover and prop the iPad up with the kickstand, which has a pretty decent angle of adjustment in my opinion. And the actual keyboard part, which snaps onto the bottom of the iPad with magnets and the smart connector, is actually pretty good as well. The keys are pretty solid, they're a decent size, they're really nice to type on, great key travel, and a whole row of function keys at the very top of the keyboard as well, which is great to have, especially because the Pro doesn't even have this, which is kind of funny at this point. Unfortunately though, there is no backlighting with this keyboard, but it is what it is. And the trackpad is nice as well. It has a solid click to it. It's actually larger than the Magic Keyboard's trackpad, which is kind of interesting, and it works with all those iPadOS gestures, so it's fluid, works great. I'm a fan. And using this keyboard cover on a desk is a really good experience. It works great. But the moment you take it off that desk is when it just completely falls apart. Sometimes literally. The magnets holding the keyboard to the iPad are really not that strong at all, and also when you put that keyboard cover on the iPad's display, it just kind of moves around a little bit, doesn't really stay closed, which is kind of unfortunate. There's really no clasp, no strong magnets, it's a little bit weak. And also, like, using this on your lap is not a good experience at all. It's a whole balancing act. The keyboard's flopping around, the kickstand's digging into your legs. It's not great. So that's where the Magic Keyboard definitely excels, is being able to use it really anywhere. Okay, and the Apple Pencil drama. Yes, it is the Generation 1 Apple Pencil, which is by all means not a bad stylus for the iPad. It works great, we used it for years. I really have no complaints about actually using it. Like, it's great for drawing or writing. Doesn't have all the features of the new 2nd generation Apple Pencil, but still, it's like pretty good. However, it really can't be stored on the iPad anywhere unless you buy a separate accessory or you buy a case for it or something. You might just end up losing this pencil, which is kind of unfortunate. And unlike the Apple Pencil 2, which just snaps onto the side of the iPad and charges wirelessly, this has to be plugged in. And here's where it gets really bizarre. So with the previous model, as bad of a design decision as it was to plug the pencil into the side of the iPad, you can't do that here really at all because the pencil's still Lightning and the port on the new iPad is USB-C. So you gotta use this new Lightning to USB-C adapter, which if you buy the Apple Pencil brand new today, it comes in the box, but if you already bought this pencil for a previous iPad model, you have to buy that accessory separately for like $5, I think. Then you can either plug a cable into the adapter and plug it into your wall to charge, or plug that cable into your iPad to charge. It's kind of confusing, it's really a disaster, it's a mess, but that's how you charge up the pencil. And this adapter is unfortunately an essential accessory because to pair the pencil to the iPad, you do have to plug it in using this adapter. But I mean, if you already have an older iPad, you already bought this pencil, it's one less expense, which is great, but you do have to live with a brand new adapter. So it's annoying. But despite the ups and downs of the keyboard and pencil, they're both definitely essential accessories for the iPad experience at this point, and whether you buy these accessories from Apple or a third-party company, you do really need to get these to have the full iPad experience in 2022. Okay, so that's kind of the design and physical aspects of this new iPad model. There's a lot of good things, a lot of weird things, but that's just how it is. Let's talk about the experience now, using this iPad every single day. What's it gonna be like? So to be honest, I'm still testing this iPad out, putting it through its paces, but so far, it's great. It's an iPad. I mean, for battery life, like we know iPads have great battery life, great standby, and here it's no different. With a mix of usage, I get all-day battery with this iPad, like doing lighter things like emails and watching videos, to things like editing photos. It can almost always survive a day or more of usage. It can definitely last a full day. Also performance, this iPad feels fast and can actually handle most things, no problem. It has an A14 Bionic processor inside, which is by no means a slow processor, and it also has 4 GB of RAM. Using Procreate for drawing, making wallpapers, it's a good experience. Now there will be some limitations with how many layers you can have depending on the resolution of your canvas, but besides that, Procreate works well. Writing out notes in Apple's Notes app or Notability, using Affinity Photo for more intensive photo edits, or Lightroom for those lighter edits, watching videos, playing games, it's a good experience on this iPad, and so far, I've really had no issues. And multitasking is here too. Split screen, you can have 2 apps open, have a floating window come in. It's a pretty good experience on this iPad, and so far, I really have no issues with usability and performance. But on the subject of multitasking, here's where the real divide with this device comes in versus the Pro and Air. So this iPad can do split screen, as I mentioned, no problem at all, but it doesn't have Stage Manager or the full external display support we have on the Pro, which is supposedly coming pretty soon. And those big new Pro app titles like DaVinci Resolve and Octane, which are making their way over to the iPad soon, are either not going to run on this iPad because it doesn't have an M series processor, or will likely be limited in one way or another. And those big future software updates over the next few years that are going to bring more Pro features to the Pro and the Air are almost likely not coming to this iPad in any way at all. You're of course still going to get iPadOS software updates, but expect a more nerfed and toned down version of iPadOS. Apple has been working in a way to really segment and divide the iPad lineup up, kind of like the MacBook lineup, which isn't really a bad thing because, buy the device that makes the most sense for the stuff you use it for. However, the whole pricing thing is what makes this all really confusing. So this iPad costs $449 USD, brand new. Now look at the prices of the refurbished Air and Pro models, which are nearly the exact same price as this, but offer so much more in terms of hardware features and also software features. And even though they're a little bit older, they're still more future-proof than this device really will ever be. And that's the main thing here. This is such a weird device in Apple's current iPad lineup, but it also does a lot of good things right and things better than the Pro and Air. So I'm gonna make this real easy for you. Here's the bottom line. If you wanna buy this iPad for any reason at all, even just for one of the colors, go for it. It's great. It's a really good device. There's really nothing horribly wrong with it. There's some interesting decisions, but it's overall a great tablet and a great iPad. But I highly recommend checking out those refurbished options available on Apple's very own website or other used sites as well to get better deals on the Air or the Pro. Those might make more sense for you. And I also just recommend waiting if you can, because the iPad lineup right now is in an interesting development stage. It's changing in terms of software and also in terms of hardware. But that's pretty much it. It's an iPad. It's definitely an iPad, and that's never really been a bad thing. So those are my thoughts on this new 2022 iPad, but I want to hear your thoughts on this device. Do you think it makes sense? Would you buy one? Did you buy one? What do you think of this device? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, and thank you for watching.